Welcome back, Budget Gamer fans. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Way Remastered. Before we get into the actual review, however, I do want to address for anyone who may be concerned that this game is not merely a reskin of Another World. If you have played Another World, The Way is a very different game. Though it is almost impossible to stray too far from the baseline dynamics of the typical puzzle platformer genre. The storyline in The Way Remastered is actually really deep and very engrossing. Initially, we see the main protagonist digging up the grave of his newly departed wife and carrying her corpse back to his laboratory apartment. And through subversion and stealth, this distraught scientist must fight his way off of his home planet to another world in order to hopefully find a way of bringing her back. In his previous extraterrestrial research, he had discovered some sort of an annotation of eternal life and thinks that he can give that to his newly departed lover. And it's the richness of this story that does keep the player involved, even though the graphics are simple and some of the gameplay mechanics are actually a little on the clunky side. Being that in addition to the logic-based puzzles in The Way Remastered, there are also some high-speed platformer type puzzles that really require a very solid jump and shoot dynamic. However, while the jumping and shooting mechanics are fine for the stealth and navigating your way through a puzzle platformer, they do fall a little bit short as far as actual platforming. But this is generally few and far between and only for very specific engagements. So if you are more a fan of the puzzles and the story than the actual platforming elements, this really shouldn't detract from your gameplay at all. The gameplay in The Way Remastered is divided almost into chapters. So you'll have certain areas with certain enemies that need to be engaged in a very specific way, and as soon as those types of challenges are over, generally the game moves into a new type of a setting. This setting will unveil its new puzzles and new types of enemies that must be encountered in a new and unique way. And this is where the platforming element really does come into play. Much like Another World, if anything touches you or you fall from too far, you die. But thankfully, unlike Another World, you start merely seconds before wherever it was that you died. As some of the situations you get in will be very trying, a myriad of deaths back to back is only par for the course. So much so that the developers actually threw in an achievement for dying too many times trying the same thing over and over. But moving back to the puzzle aspect of the game, as stated earlier, these are mostly logic-based puzzles. So even though there will be some running around the map, generally you'll be confronted with a situation that you really have to reason your way through. And it's these kind of well-seasoned heavy logic puzzles that go really well with the retro-style game art. But even with the well-suited art and music, these kinds of heavy, intense logic puzzles can get really tiresome. And I think this is honestly, besides the story, one of the biggest successes of The Way Remastered in general. And that's the sheer volume of diversity within this platforming puzzle game. Some puzzles will have you connecting water pipes to activate moving carts, while others will have you bouncing lasers off mirrors to match patterns on a wall. And the list goes on and on. And besides the diversity of the types of puzzles themselves, skills that you unlock as you play through the game will only add to the massive diversity in the potential for puzzles and the ways levels need to be navigated. And even if you were going to attempt to mad dash and speed run this game, it would still probably take you between 6 and 7 hours. A completionist, though, it may take closer to 9 or even 10. Though this does bring us to another flaw. The Way Remastered is a very long and intense puzzle platforming game, and as such there is a lot of possibility for undiscovered bugs. And as you may have guessed, yes, there are a few. Sometimes you might float through a solid object, fall through the floor, or even have all of your game data completely erased. Though thankfully this one is more rare and I haven't had it happen, I have heard it reported. So if you think you might be willing to invest your time in this game, know that you might be needing to invest a bit more than you initially thought. But like I said, 1 or 2 reports of bugs doesn't mean everyone will experience them. Because in many cases, these are very, very specific and no player plays the exact same game the exact same way. And having just hit an 80% off price drop, I'd say the risk is definitely worth it. Overall, The Way Remastered is a very engrossing puzzle platformer with a really rich story. And not to spoil it too much, there's a split ending, so if you do get really invested in the game, get ready for that. But in all honesty, a story of eternal love in some far-off dystopian future is really amazing to fit into a game like a puzzler. And once you do start playing it, you really do get wrapped up in it. So all being considered, for $2, there's not much that would make this game not worth playing. Though unless you are interested in finding out what both of the endings are, there might not actually be that much replay value. So while it is fun and it'll definitely take at least 8 hours of your life, the only replayability after that will probably just be for nostalgia. Anyway, that about wraps up the review of The Way Remastered on the Switch eShop. It is 80% off right now, so I really would encourage you to get it if you're remotely interested in those puzzle platformer type games. But anyway, if you liked the review or found it helpful, feel free to throw me a like or a comment to show your support. And don't forget to click that little bell icon when you subscribe to stay updated with the latest content. These videos are coming out all the time, so there's always going to be something new to find. And if you're interested in supporting the channel, check out our Patreon page. But anyway, this has been Budget Gamer, so as always, thanks for watching.